Welcome to Blue Glasses Math. In this podcast, we will explore how our self-perception as math teachers and learners influences our approach to life. Whether you identify as a math enthusiast or not, this podcast is for you. Are you a teacher, a parent, a school administrator, or a student? Join me as we shift our perspective on what it means to be a math person. Let's take a look. Good morning, Alison Mello. I'm so excited to talk to you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning, Pam Brett. Thank you for inviting me to be on the podcast today. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I love how we kind of met at NCTM in October. So that was a couple months back. And I was sort of wandering around the exhibit floor, and I saw you coming by, and I think you had a wheelie cart. Did you have a cart with wheels?
I sure did. Yep, sure did.
And you had your beaded number line, on your, like you were wearing it like a necklace.
I did.
We kind of looked at each other, and I'm like, "Are you Alison?" And you're like, "Are you Pam?" And then that's how we connected. And
yep. And then you stood up, and I saw you were the same height as me, and then that was it. I was like, I love this woman because she's the same size.
Yes. We are fun size math educators.
Fun size. Yes.
It's kind of funny when you stand next to somebody like Dan Meyer.
That is literally like a scale problem. He took a selfie of me, and I looked like
me
like
too.
I was in like what's that movie, Willy Wonka? Like I looked,
yes.
I was so small next to him. I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't even see the top. Did you do it too? Did you do a selfie?
He did. He did this, and it was at one of those like evening events that Amplify was running, and he did that, and I thought, okay, and I've shown that picture to so many people. We've got to compare pictures. And people are like, that's got to be Photoshopped. I'm like, I am telling you it is not. They're like, how tall is that dude? So Dan Meyer, are you listening?
Yep. You're tall, and we are vertically challenged.
Vertically challenged, yes, fun size, but that's all good. Awesome. Well, I'm so psyched to have this conversation with you. We've had a lot of pre-recording conversation about our experiences, but also our all setup where we are in our offices and all the things. So let's get started with your math story, Alison. I'm so curious to know, because that's one thing we did not talk about.
No, we did not talk about my math story.
For me.
It's funny because I have been referred to as the accidental math teacher, and I really feel like that is so true for me, because you've had other people on your podcast say this, and it's very true. 8 times 7, I don't know why, but that was my first stumbling block in 3rd grade, was 8 times 7. And I have a whole trauma story that I could tell you about this coffee can and these flashcards, but I won't. Just know that I don't like coffee. And
Wait, no, now you have to tell me the story. I don't understand how the coffee can comes into it.
All right. I grew up in the 80s. And so in the 80s, we had to memorize our facts. And so we had, they used to call it like oak tag, like the heavy paper.
Oh, yes. I know exactly what oak tag.
We folded it and made all our flashcards, and then you put them in a coffee can. And then as you learned them, you removed them from the coffee can. And that stupid 8 times 7 was in the bottom of my coffee can. And the coffee can kind of traveled around with us. So you kind of had it all the time. And it was very clear when you still didn't know something. And I was a straight A student, and I identified as like, I want to be the best and the brightest in this class. And that really bothered me that I don't know why I couldn't get 8 times 7. And it's so funny because last year at camp, this woman came to my session, and I was teaching her this game, I Love Math, which is like rock, paper, scissors. And she actually did 8 times 7 with the distributive property and I put it on my Instagram. So check, it's such a great video. But like, if someone just told me I could decompose the 7 into a 5 and a 2, I knew my 5s, I knew my 2s. So that was my first, I don't like this. And then I remember like middle school, I hit the wall, I changed schools, and I had felt very strong as a math student prior to that, other than the 8 times 7, because I was very procedural and I could do it all. And then I got to middle school, new school, and I got a 0 every day from the teacher. She would say 0 for the day's work because I didn't know how to do it. And I wanted to do it. And it challenged my identity of like, I thought I was a smart person. And so in that moment, I decided I wasn't. And that was my whole high school trajectory. I never tried to take calculus. I never tried in math. I was just like, well, Math's not for me. And I'm like, well, I wanted to be an accountant, but I also used to like to play school. So I guess I'll be an elementary teacher. I was good at that math. Surprise. I actually wasn't good at that math either. So when I was in college, I learned about base 10. And that was like my first glimmer of like, oh, number bases. I'm interested. I'm fascinated. But then when I got into my practicum for math, I had a very bad experience in front of students. For some reason, our professor put us in a middle school and had me do a mini lesson on integers. I didn't know
Fun.
anything about integers. I had a
Awesome.
bad experience in middle school. And as I was doing the lesson with my small group, she said across the room very loudly, "You're doing it wrong." And I remember just being like sweating and I don't really sweat. I was like sweating and I was like, oh my God, this affirms everything I think about myself. I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be teaching math. I was mortified. I requested a meeting with her and I'm like, listen, if I'm going to teach children math, I really need to get more out of your class. And I remember my friends being like, who do you think you are? You like told the professor, but I was so panicked about it. And lo and behold, with my elementary certification, my first job was teaching middle school math, parochial school. And I remember every day being like, I'm sweaty. Someone's going to find out. I don't know what I'm doing. And I skipped every word problem that year, like malpractice, educational malpractice, so bad. And I was like, oh my God, I got to get ahead and like try to teach myself this. And when I did, I think my brain was more ready to learn. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. That can make sense. And very long story short, got on this very unexpected, accidental path and got my master's and focused every class on math and science, was like fascinated, learning things I never knew before. Kind of felt a little cheated, like, oh, why didn't I learn this way?
Yes.
And then I did my comps for my master's. This is my last big milestone. And it was definitely the turning point for me. My panel said to me, well, what are your aspirations with this degree and your master's? And I was like, oh, I want to be a math specialist. And they all sat back and happened to be 3 men and said, oh, you don't have the qualifications. You can't do that. And I, in my head was like, watch me. And the next
Oh my
week
gosh.
I
Soul
had the job.
sister.
Yeah, had the job
Soul
and
sister.
middle school math specialist to boot, and stayed there forever and moved through the ranks as like math specialist and then curriculum director. Had to learn early numeracy, which was wild and exciting. And then I became the assistant superintendent of my district, which was too far away from the math. So now I get to be back in the math world. So I always tell people, you can feel safe with me because every mistake that you could make as a teacher, I did it and worse. I mean, I wish I had a do-over. Can you relate to that?
Oh, 100%. Well, first of all, my first job was in a parochial school. So I can relate to that. And I think my imposter moment came when I was asked, I think it was after I was a consultant and I was consulting in the middle school because I happen to love teaching and consulting in middle school. And the administrator came to me and said, we need you to go to the primary school. And I was like, ugh, I have to go to kindergarten. Like, what does kindergarten math look like? I don't know. I mean, and not just the actual, not the actual math in kindergarten. It was also the developmental level of kindergartners, first graders, and second graders. That
Correct.
I was so used to sassy eighth graders and seventh graders by this point in my career that I had to then basically relearn how to show up and how to position the teacher and position the students when I was coaching them.
Yeah. It's
And
a
that
totally
was,
different world, right? I
oh,
mean,
completely.
I bow down to early childhood people. I
Me
really do.
too.
It's a lot.
I made the mistake one time though at a PD, and I had begged for this PD because I don't know about you, but I have experienced that. Well, we have the literacy initiative.
Mm.
Well, we have a literacy initiative. And I'm like, okay, where is the math initiative? When are
Yeah,
we going to have a
right.
math initiative? And so I begged and pleaded for this day. I finally got it. I think it was like a 3-hour PD in the morning. I had all the teachers that I had been working with for probably 2 years or so. And I started by saying something about kudos to the kindergarten teachers, because they're teaching our kids how to be human and they deserve a gold star and blah, blah, blah. Well, the first grade teachers went to the principals and complained because they said that it was something I was under, and I didn't mean to say that other people aren't working hard, but I don't know why I'm telling this
You're
story,
trying to
but it
give
was
them a
just,
special shout out because
I really
their
was.
work is different. They're teaching kids how to do school for the first time.
Yeah. Right.
And in my
100%.
district, I feel like during COVID, my first grade teachers really got a bird's eye view of the things that kids had learned in kindergarten but didn't come with that year, like how to sit on the rug, how to get in a line. And they were like, oh my God, like it was a lot for them. So I think they probably hadn't had that experience, you know, to appreciate. Yeah, kindergarten's a little different. They kind of think they're the same sometimes, and they're not.
They're not. That's a whole nother world. But anyhow, so yes, I can relate to a lot of that. I can relate to, you know, the idea of feeling like somebody's going to come in and find out
Yes.
that this is not.
The jig is up.
The jig is up, right? I still feel like that some days. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, I think again, part of the reason why I started this podcast also was to shine a light on the vulnerability and the authenticity that we need to bring into schools, and we need to bring into the whole math space. Yesterday, and I was at the Museum of Mathematics in New York City, which, by the way, if you ever have a chance, they're under construction. They're building a new site. And so I got to go for a hard hat tour. It's wild.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
It was so cool. So I got to see like the behind the scenes. But one of the themes that the executive director, Cindy Lawrence, kept talking about throughout the whole tour was that people hear that this was a math museum and they sometimes will like want to walk the other way, right? And even to the point that when they were trying to name the museum, the company that they were working with, what do you call it? Like a branding company, the marketing company they were working with, suggested not to use these two words in their title, museum and math. And right? Because a museum kind of connotates that you have to just look and not touch, and everything's interactive there. That's one. And math, because we know, because
they know more. Say less, as the kids say, say less. Yes, math. We know.
Right. Yeah. And so they grappled with it for a little while, and then they settled on, you know what? That's exactly what we're calling it. It's the Museum of Mathematics, period, full stop. And now they're on 6th Avenue.
Like a PR campaign. You know what I mean? To like rebrand math as like this cool, fun thing that it actually is.
Yes. And that it's accessible, and that you don't have to have your 7x8 stuck in the bottom of the coffee can, that there's a way to get that 7x8 out of there.
Do you know how much I hate the smell of coffee?
Truly. I can't believe
not drink coffee. Yeah, it's wild. It's like a visceral, like I have such vivid memories of that because I had told myself this story before that I was this, you know, bright kid, and I'm an only child. So I always felt like I had a lot to live up to, you know, at home, and wanted to make my parents proud. And I'm still very much that person who always is pushing. But I remember just feeling like everyone's going to be so disappointed in me because I can't get this one thing. And everyone would say to me, you're a dancer, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, that means nothing to me. Like it doesn't, I kept thinking it was 54. I'm not sure why. And it's funny. I think I heard Joe Bowler talk about 8x7 being one for her. Maybe she wrote about it on YouTube. And I just remember pausing and being like, okay, it's not just me. But what I'm upset about now is I just didn't know about decomposing numbers. I love to take numbers apart and put them back together. Like I think I'm intuitively, in retrospect, very mathematically like inclined and love to play, but that was not part of my education, was playing with numbers. My education, like many of your guests and you, is follow the steps, do the procedures. And I was very good at being a compliant kid. I wanted to.
Me too. That I 100%, I still resonate with that today. Is that compliance, but it's like, I'm trying to be a recovering complier. And
I love that.
I'm a recovering complier because
question everything.
Question everything, right? Yes. Notice and wonder everything. I have the sticker on my laptop. I'm always noticing. I'm always wondering because I really am. And I think this whole people pleaser narrative that we've been sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Brainwashed. It's not brainwashed. What is the word I'm looking for? Conditioned. Maybe it's conditioned, right? It's the conditioning of producing something so that somebody else is happy.
It's right. So true.
That is what I'm trying to bring to light here, is that it is not about this people pleasing, right? I say to teachers all the time, your students will value whatever it is they think you value.
Exactly. And if you're enthusiastic about something, they're enthusiastic about something.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first started teaching those 7th and 8th graders, we did mad minutes every single day. And I remember every single day they got the same ones wrong. And I would pack up my little LL bean bag and bring it home. My 28 kids times 100 problems every day. Just do the math, like 2,800 problems. Why did I not have them checking them themselves? I have no idea. But I just remember thinking, this is the definition of insanity. I'm doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, and it doesn't work. And many, many, many years later, when I started my doctoral work, I did a deep dive on time tests and math facts, and I was very passionate about fact fluency. And I remember my major advisor saying, that's too narrow of a topic. You can't do that for you. And I was like, okay. So I ended up doing my doctoral work on math disposition and the classroom learning environment, which I was so fascinated, but the relationship between those two things. And I watched over my career, this is my 30th year in education. So I had watched over the years this decline in kids being excited and thinking they were capable of math. It used to be the literature would say, like, 6th grade, you make a decision about yourself. I was starting to see, I would always ask the kids when I'd go into class, like, who's a mathematician? And all the kids would raise their hands, me. And I noticed that was starting to drop off, like, earlier and earlier, because it used to be elementary school kind of wholesale. Yeah. It started, I noticed half the 1st grade raising their hand. And I was like, ooh. So when I picked, right, crazy, right? As soon as they get the idea that it's about the right answer, they have anxiety. I'm sure you see it all the time.
I just got the full body chills. As soon as they see that it's about the right answer.
Yep. All of a sudden they feel less than, like, oh, how come you're done and I'm not done? And how come, and I know you're going to be right. So I'm just going to sit back. And I feel that as, even now, I was put on the spot once. And Steve Linewan is a friend of mine, and he knows this. He put me on the spot once, and I was running this whole conference in my district, and I just wasn't listening to the question. But there were a lot of people there I respected, like my high school department head and other teachers and other administrators. And I had a 50-50 shot. It was like a yes or no question. And I just threw out the answer. And he's like, well, I don't want to embarrass you. And I said later, I'm like, you know what? I'm not embarrassed because I actually didn't try. I would have been embarrassed years ago, but I didn't even try. I just took a guess. And that was my life, was guessing, working backwards, hoping the answer was in the back of the book. Like, all of those things, they come back instantly. Everything shuts down, like, oh my gosh, you put me on the spot. So even now, I can identify as that person still, which I think helps working with teachers, because I think a lot of them feel that way.
Yes. 100%.
And we're asking them to do math that, and I know this is not a hot take, everybody talks about this, but that we're asking them to do math that they may have never experienced. And I think Shelby was talking about, when you had her on, like, we don't give them the time. I was kind of bummed when I listened to her episode, because I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much, we talk about the same stuff, but like giving them the time to experience the math as a learner and have their aha moments themselves, like we did. Oh, it was Courtney, actually. It was Courtney who was talking about it. She's like, I had those aha moments. I'm like, yes, I had them. And I remember being like, I used to tell kids that a number to the 0 power was 1 because it was a rule. And then one day I noticed, I was like, wait a minute.
That's one of my favorite ones. That's one of my favorite ones to discover for the kids.
Isn't it? And how often do we let kids uncover and discover those connections because of the rush of the pacing and the state tests and all of those things, or we don't know them ourselves. So we can't even facilitate a learning environment that's going to make that happen.
Yeah. And that gets, okay. So that brings me to our next direction with this conversation is, what are some things that we need to do in classrooms to facilitate? Well, first of all, let's back up. Let's give teachers a time and space to do math. That's number one, right? It's like, do not pass go.
Yes, right?
They have to do math. I was with a teacher yesterday who I asked, and I'm in my mind thinking, okay, maybe I should have framed this question. I said, what are some ways that we can compare fractions, right? It was a 4th grade teacher. What are some ways that we have students compare fractions? And right away she said, butterfly method. And she was so proud of herself and she was so excited to share that with me. And in the moment, and her administrator was sitting there, and I'm like, okay, so, my response to her was, well, let's talk about how the butterfly method works and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to get into the whole story, but that shocked me, knowing, especially I worked with this teacher last year, but we didn't work on fractions, but I thought, oh, okay, we're still in the mindset of just giving kids tricks, and the relief that that gives a student and a teacher sometimes in that moment that, okay, now
Mhm.
I can get to the answer. Okay,
Exactly.
the struggle is over. I'm moving on. And so how can we move that needle to, it's about the process. It's not about the answer. It's, without having that backlash about, well, you're telling us that right answers are not important, that like left
Right. It's so
narrative. And it's
true.
like, no, no,
It's yeah,
no. Right
it's
answers
so
are
true.
important,
Right.
but it's what we're focusing on.
I feel like teachers, and myself included, were robbed of the opportunity to know that this is all connected, and it actually does make sense. And sense making is an important part of it. That's where the joy comes from. Otherwise, you're avoiding it. I watch eighth graders recently walk by these task cards that were up in the room, and I was like, "Wait a minute, you passed," and they're like, "Oh, it has fractions. We're not doing it." It's like, okay, I understand.
We're just going to skip over
We're
fractions.
just not going to do that. We're going to avoid those. And I had a PL session with a big group from the district. And this woman, I like to have people, honestly, I like them to tell me all the things that frustrate them
Me too.
first,
Me
because
too.
I think it's important to hear teachers. Oftentimes they're not heard. Things are done to them and not for them. And I'm really a big advocate of like, no, this is really for you. So tell me. And they went on and on about, oh, why did they change the math and blah, blah, blah. And I validated that. Yeah, why did they change the math? And later when I showed them some, like the How Old is the Shepherd video from Robert Kaplinski is one of my favorites, and something on like keywords and really messing up the kids so that they can have their own aha moments. That's really my style. And the person who had said all these things and was very adamant, I went back and I'm like, so tell me more, because obviously you love math. She's like, I hate math. I'm like, if you hate it, then why are you saying we should do it the same way? Like, that's the definition of insanity. And by the time we left and we actually did some cool things like a number talk and decompose number bonds with fractions and really conceptually thinking about things and visuals and all that stuff, they left and they were like, oh my gosh, that changed everything in one session, like changed everything about how I perceive myself and how I perceive that. And I think that you have to somehow crack open the door so you can knock it down so that people
Yeah.
are open to the conversation. I mean, I had a kindergarten teacher once. I did something, I was taking a class on Singapore math and bar modeling tape diagrams. And I think I did consecutive integer problem with a kindergarten teacher.
I love.
She's like, I get that. I get that. How could I not have been taught this way? Like I was robbed. And that's what I want. I want that reaction of like, I was robbed and now I want more because I know I can do it.
Yes. Yes. Because you've cracked it open and given multiple representations and ways to think about it.
Right. All of a sudden it's accessible. It's not this abstract, like middle school teachers, and having been one, often I struggle getting them to use any type of manipulatives or
Yeah.
visuals. And I'm like, but that's when it's become the most abstract. So we need to somehow make it tangible for kids. And because I think many of those people have been successful in math themselves, they just think it's going to be intuitive, and it's not. And so unleashing the power of that and showing them like, oh, you're co-teaching with this special educator who doesn't feel about math the way that you do. I want to do this, and watch how they respond. And they're like, oh, just giving them that aha moment.
Mhm.
So
Sometimes, yeah. And sometimes it's amazing to not use, but to bring that special education teacher in as somebody who maybe doesn't identify as a math person. Because I know I've met several conversations with special ed because they have to be in every single classroom, right? They've got to be in
right.
sometimes they're following a child around or the group around. And they've got to be an expert in everything. And it's like, how is that possible? They also have to be an expert in the special education modifications and everything else. So
That's right.
having these models. So let's talk about the beaded number line, because I
Yes.
think that you posted something probably about a month ago, and it was something about how you had this aha moment. You had an aha moment about
Sure
using a
did.
beaded number line for a middle school concept. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do, because we wrote a book several years ago working with the beaded number line. It's this one. But when we wrote this, we wrote it through the K-5 lens. I wrote it with Dr. Nikki Newton, who's written like 50 something books, whatever. And I don't know why she identifies an elementary person and I identify as a middle school person, but who has done K-8 now. And we just capped it at grade 5. And then I was in a school and the students were really struggling and grappling with this problem about finding they were trying to find 25% of 300.
I'm writing this down. Okay, 25% of 300.
And the teacher is amazing. She has done some of the coolest things, and she's a sponge, and she loves everything we work on. And we had made beaded number lines, but she had them. She's like, I don't know what to do with them. And I was like, well, she gave a nice contextualized problem. I always say three things. We need to add visuals. We need to have precise language that's consistent across classrooms. And then we need to have some sort of visual, some context. So she gave the context, and the context was there were 25% of the kids are in the band. And if there's 300 kids, how many kids is that? And I watched the kids on their desks with their little whiteboard markers, and they had little dry erase desks doing all these things with numbers, naked numbers. Some of them were successful. Many of them were not successful and didn't really have the entry point. They were trying to like set up a proportion, but it was 6th grade. They weren't really sure. So I was like, wait a minute, grab those beaded number lines. I'm having a light bulb moment. And I put it down. I'm like, what do you notice? It's 100. Oh, what is percent out of 100? What would 25% of 100 be? And the kid it was very easy. They were like, oh, they just moved the beads, 25. Great. What if it was 200? Put another beaded number line down. Looked at it. I'm going to do the same thing again. Oh, okay. So is it 50? Like wondering, but it could be 50. What about 300? Oh my gosh. And even the teacher and I both looked at each other like, how did we miss this? Like for real. It was like this great organic moment. Yes. And that's what I love about being around teachers. I learned so much from their it's like a lab. You know what I mean? You get to go in and experiment. 100%. And they do cool things that I'm like, you know what she did? I have to tell you this story because I am like obsessed with this. I teach the teachers about numerator, denominator, the same. Put a big 1 around it all the time. Just make a big 1, right? You've seen a big 1. Well, this same teacher and her partner, actually, I think it came from her partner, her counterpart. They put up a giant 1 outside of their classroom made of whiteboard material. And all the kids, this is 6th grade, all wrote equivalent fractions to 1. They were all kinds of numerators and denominators, but they wrote them. Okay, that was cool. But what she did, because she knows her people, she hung DJ Khaled right there. And he says, another 1. Now, if you know, you know. He says that in every song he has, another 1. And he's pointing to it. So like I'm in the class and the kids are like, another 1.
Another 1. Oh my gosh, that's genius.
Isn't it? Brilliant. Totally like on their level. Yes. And like made sense. And they see it every single day.
Relatable. Day. Yes.
Yep. It was awesome.
Good for her to be tuned in. See, I suck at pop culture, so I don't even know if I would have picked up on something like that, but good for her.
She's paying attention to her kids. And now like she has made room in her space for manipulatives. Like we tried teaching, introducing expressions with algebra tiles in 6th, so that when they get to 7th and they're going to do integer operations, we can do them, and we can do equations with algebra tiles, so that by the time they get to 8th, they actually understand what's going on with equations, and you can release that. I mean, we don't want to be there forever. I always say that to teachers, like, I'm sure when you were little, you might have had a pacifier to get yourself to sleep. Don't tell me if you do, but you probably don't use that anymore.
I'm stealing that. I'm sorry. I'm totally stealing that. I mean, I always use like the training wheels, but the pacifier is even more, you know, gosh. It's like, why not just let them have it so they have a visual to
ground their reasoning, right? Like, I got swept up in universal design these last couple of years, and again, feel very robbed that I never was thinking that way before. Like, if we just if student agency is a priority and kids can choose a tool that's going to help them, or a visual model, or if they're happy in the abstract, whatever, but it's their choice. And you've set up a classroom now that makes things accessible for everyone. That to me is, I always say to teachers, I have twins, and they learn very differently. And one got an IEP. It took years to get it. And when we finally understood how she learned differently, we could support her better. So I learned a lot from being a parent about how to better teach math as well. But I always say it was her middle school special educators. They weren't worried about teaching her the Pythagorean theorem. They taught her how to think. And that's the greatest gift we can give any kid. It's the Apollo 13 moment when they dump everything out on the table.
Yes.
That's what we need, right? You can't photo math that. You can't ChatGPT and AI that. Like, you have to know, like, this doesn't make sense. Like, what am I going to do? And that's the gift they gave her. And that kid got through pharmacy school, and she's a pharmacist.
Wow.
Yeah, it is like one of my,
Amazing.
yeah, it's a cool, and my other daughter's an accountant. They're both amazing, but like she had different obstacles to
Yeah.
overcome to get there. And I
Yeah.
always think of that, like they taught her how she learned, and she used that forever, not just for math.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's amazing. That is awesome. All right. So as we wrap up this conversation, let's talk about what gives you hope. What gives you hope in the math education space specifically?
Honestly, what gives me hope every single day is watching teachers. It reminds me of Rita Pearson's TED Talk.
Oh,
Um,
love her.
every child's a champion. Teachers are in situations often where things don't make sense, like policies don't make sense, or decisions don't make sense, or things keep getting added onto their plates. And I see them still there for their students. And when they are inspired, I see them going above and beyond. And I was on the Make Math Moments,
Hmm.
the virtual, and it was on a Sunday, and 6,000 people signed up.
Right?
And I remember thinking, I said to some of the administrators I work with, I said, it's not that they don't want to learn. They don't want to learn how to be compliant to this program or how to work this platform. They actually want to learn something that's for them. And that to me is professional learning. That's being inspired. So to me, teachers inspire me. They come out. I have a conference in the summer, and they come on a beautiful summer day when they could be at the beach, sometimes on their own dime, because they want to be there in community learning. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah. That says a lot. It says a lot about teachers. And I think that's the narrative that we need to continue to share. The teachers are here for it.
Yes.
They are here for it.
It's the it. What is the it, right? It needs to be an it that's worth something to them.
Yes.
Have you ever asked
100%.
your teachers you work with, do you collect this data for you? Is it to inform your practice, or is it for someone else? And they're always like,
Yeah.
oh, it's for someone
It's up for
else.
someone else. Like, why are we looking at data so much? Right? That's a question I ask. Like, what are you doing during your grade level meetings when I'm not here? We look at data. And then I'm like, okay, what do we do with the data? And
We do with it.
they're like, I don't know. We just were told we're looking at data today. Like,
That's it.
okay.
I've started to say to admin lately, do we do for our teachers what we ask them to do for our students?
Yeah,
Do we
right.
give them agency? Do we encourage risk taking? Do we differentiate their profession? Like all of the things that we want them to
Yeah.
do we do it? Because they're adult learners. And if we want them to learn, we have to create the same conditions for them.
Yeah. And that buy-in will follow them so much further. And getting that buy-in is so key. And I'm using the word buy-in, but it's like just treating them as humans.
Honestly, it's the first year I did my conference, just a little side story, I did it for my district because it was very hard. I cried a lot when I decided to leave my district, but I knew I had gotten to the top of this mountain, and it was the wrong mountain. I was like, I don't
Mm.
want to be a central office. That's not what I wanted to do. And so I had my teachers were calling me and saying, can you make another graduate class for us? Can you? And I was like, I really can't. So I made this conference for them,
Mm.
and they came, and I watched them have so much joy around professional learning in community with other people. And I was like, wow, I doubt that like their everyday like admin would know that they would want to do this. Like they didn't get it approved. They didn't ask for someone else to pay for it. They came, and they said, this was actually sad to me. They were like, it was really cool. I had it at like a nice hotel. I've since moved it to Gillette Stadium, but now it was a nice
Gillette
hotel.
Stadium.
Yeah. And they said, they're like, we could go get a soda anytime we wanted.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, wow, like that's how low the bar was for you guys? Or like you let us make a choice to have time. Like I put like an SEL track in there. And
Hmm.
like they could go in, at the time it was a Taylor Swift theme, so they could make a friendship bracelet. And they're adults. You choose how to use your time. There's a lot of math in that, by the way. But
Yes.
like that's what they wrote about. We felt so respected as professionals, and we don't often feel that way. And that killed me, because to me, that's when they feel that way, they'll do anything.
100%. Yeah. 100%. And they deserve it because they're
They
the ones who are there every single
totally
day
deserve it.
doing the
Yes.
things, and
And it's hard.
being all the people. So awesome. Okay, so how can people connect? I know okay, so I'm gonna put all of your books linked in the show notes and everything, but where can people find you? Where would you want people to connect with you? Well, you talked about the conference, so tell me a little bit more about that so people can save the date.
The conference is called Get Your Workshop On, and it is next year. It's August 4th. And I'm excited because Pam Harris is coming, and Vanessa, and Jenna Labe, Shelby Strong will be there. Rob, there's so many people that
It's going to be a math party.
It's going to be a huge math. Kristen Acosta, many of your guests actually
are
going to be there. Yeah, it's going to be so much fun. And I have my dream team who I worked with in my district, and they are the most talented, generous, brilliant people. And they are the backbone of this. So that's in August. So getyourworkshopon.com is the website. And that is really a joyful day of learning for leaders and teachers. And then I'm trying to be on Instagram. I feel like I'm older. And so I really am trying. It's at Alison Mello Math Consulting. And then, I still have my Blue Sky and my X or whatever. That's just at Alison Mello Math. But I think Get Your Workshop On is where people would get the biggest flavor of what we're trying to do for teachers. We really want this to be a lot of agency for them, a lot of celebration. So hopefully, I think you might be a speaker at the conference.
Oh my gosh, I would be honored. You're
going to come out to the Boston area and be in Gillette Stadium. And it's going to be a blast.
So fun. Yes, I will I've already marked my calendar. I'll be there.
You have to think about what you'll wear, because the theme this year, the people voted for the theme. Last year it was the 80s. So I'm sad that you missed that. That was actually quite fun. You'll see it on the website. But this year it's Christmas in July, even though it's technically August because we have the World Cup. So.
Oh, right. World Cup. I actually have the perfect outfit that I just found in my Christmas box. Yes. I just have to make sure that I can fit into it by August. But it's very sparkly, and I think it's very sparkly. So it'll give me some good goals besides just preparing for the conferences to prepare my outfit.
Oh, it's important because I have a red carpet for teachers.
You do?
So when you come in, you have to go down the red carpet. You have your photo. We want to treat teachers like the VIPs that they are. It's really important. Yeah, it's a fun day. Lots of swag, lots of raffles, lots of stuff for them.
Amazing. I'm envious, actually. I'm like, we need this in New Jersey.
Well, I think we're going to end up traveling with it eventually. Someday. We'll talk.
So fun. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for this conversation at the right before the holidays moments. I appreciate you taking the time, and it's been really fun to just connect with you.
Me too. I feel very grateful. That's my word every single day is gratitude. So thank you for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity to chat. It was great.
Same. Awesome. Happy holidays.
Thanks. You too.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
I'm Pam Brett. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Blue Glasses Math. Please follow me wherever you get your podcasts and follow along on the conversation on Instagram. And remember, being a math person is all just a matter of perspective.